coworker's car with a check engine code P0353, ignition coil C, primary secondary circuit malfunction. Let's try to figure out what the issue is. Hello and welcome to our channel. We have a slight emergency today. Our coworker has a 2011 Toyota Venza and the check engine light came on. When I scan the code, it shows P0353, which points to ignition cylinder number 3. So we're going to replace the ignition coil on cylinder number 3. Hopefully that fixes it and we can clear the code. So let's start working. First thing we need to do is take out the engine cover. So just hold on to the corner and pull straight up. Hopefully it will release from its mounting points. And just to show, these are the mounting points for the engine cover, and there's the balls on the side of the engine. So move this out of the way. Now just for reference, ignition coil number 1 is always in front of the engine. Even though this is side saddled, this is the one closest to the front of the engine. So counting is starting on the front. 1, 2, 3. So this is ignition coil number 3. So first thing you need to do is take out the wiring harness. Now looks like someone has been here before because the locking mechanism for the wiring harness is broken. Just for reference also, this is ignition coil number 2. You press down on the back of the locking mechanism. When it clears the locking tab, then you can pull it out. This one, like I said, it's broken, so I guess you just pull the connector out of the ignition coil. That might be the cause of the misfire or check engine code for this, because if this is loose, then the contacts on the wires or the connectors might be loose also and would cause a check engine code. Anyway, the bolt on top of the ignition coil is a 10mm bolt. So we're gonna use a 10mm socket and wrench to take out the bolt. To remove, turn counterclockwise. Now to remove the ignition coil, just pull straight out. Hopefully it's not stuck. There you go. So here's the old ignition coil, and I haven't even opened the new ignition coil, so we're taking it out of the box right now. So it looks very similar. Make sure you buy an authentic ignition coil, because this is one of those parts that it really has to be original, because you don't want this failing on you while driving or on the highway, and you're gonna have bigger problems. So if you can, buy OEM ignition coils. It's safer that way. Now let's put in the new ignition coil. Putting in the new ignition coil. Center the tip of the ignition coil on the cylinder and make sure that it grabs the top of the spark plug. Next, put in the bolt. Start by hand tightening it to prevent it from cross-threading. Torque the bolt to 14 foot-pounds. Then reconnect the wiring harness. Now if this was fixed, make sure that the locking tab locks on the tab on the ignition coil. Then put back the engine cover. And we're done. So I'm inside the vehicle right now. We're gonna clear the code. then we're gonna do a quick rescan. Okay, code is gone. Let's just double check. And that is how to replace the ignition coil on cylinder C or ignition coil number 3 for this 2011 Toyota Venza. Now I have to go back to work. Thank you for watching. Toyota Venza with a P0353 co-worker's car. Toyota Venza with a P0 co-worker's car. Co-worker's car. First thing we need to do is take out the engine cover. So look for the mounting points and look. Putting in the new ignition coil. Make sure that you center the tip of the ignition coil so it grabs the top of the spark plug. Now putting in the new ignition coil. Center the end of the ignition coil on the cylinder so that it grabs the tip of the spark plug. Next, put in the bolt. Start by hand tightening it. Putting in the new ignition coil. Center the end of the ignition coil on the cylinder and make sure that it grabs the top of the spark plug. And that is how to replace the ignition coil on cylinder number 3 or ignition cylinder C on cylinder C or new coil number. And that is how to replace the ignition coil on cylinder C or cylinder number 3. And that is how to replace the ignition coil on cylinder number cylinder C. And that is how to replace the ignition coil on cylinder C or ignition coil number 3 on this 2000. And that is how to replace the ignition coil on cylinder C or ignition coil number 3 on this 2011 Toyota Venza. Now I have to go back to work. Thank you for watching. And that is how to replace the ignition coil on cylinder C or ignition coil number 3 on this Toyota.